welcome to Ottawa Experts. I'm your host, Barbara Balfour. Well, the year 2018 was dubbed the Year of the Woman, as we saw campaigns like Time's Up and Me Too shine a harsh light on the inequality that still exists between genders today. But there's no question that diversity in the workplace and making people of all backgrounds comfortable in the workplace isn't just good news for women and minorities, but also makes tremendous business sense. It's also good for the bottom line, and particularly in fields such as STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, as well as the trades. The tech industry, in particular, is a growing sector in our city. Ottawa is not just a government town anymore, but we still have some work to do to make it more inclusive. Here to talk about some of these issues tonight, how to succeed as a woman in a man's world, are three very special guests that I'm so pleased to introduce to you tonight. First, we have Lisa Tan. Lisa is an entrepreneur and tech consultant with experience working with startups. She specializes in scaling businesses by improving their products, services, and communication efforts. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you so much for having me, Barbara.
Now, Lisa, you're actually giving something away to our viewers tonight. Tell us what that is.
I am. So what I'm giving away is a 1-hour free consultation to cover whether you're scaling a business or if you're a woman who wants to break into tech. I'll be giving a consultation to offer advice and support on how you can make that happen.
That sounds incredibly helpful. Thank you so much for doing that for our viewers tonight. If you want a chance to win that, the way you go about doing that is you have to like our Facebook page and comment below on the prize that you would like to win. We also have some giveaways happening later on tonight by our guest, Jen Ross, so make sure you stick around for that. Next, I'm pleased to introduce our next guest, Amy Yee. As the Chief Digital Officer at the Health Standards Organization, Amy leads digital transformation in addition to overseeing software engineering, IT, infrastructure, marketing and communications, and enterprise business platforms. Amy has a degree in electrical engineering and a background in venture capital, entrepreneurship, and digital consulting for Fortune 500 companies. In 2015, she won a 40 Under 40 award in Ottawa, and she currently sits on the board of directors for Kemptville District Hospital. Quite the resume, Amy. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, later on in the show, we'll be joined by Jen Ross, who is the owner of Sage Grove Contracting and specializes in not just home renovations, but also mentoring women on how to do some of that work themselves, which is pretty fantastic. Make sure you stick around for that. Now, ladies, I always like to start out the show by asking the guests how they got into their line of work and how they got to where they are today. Maybe, Lisa, you can start us off by telling us a little bit about your story and how you got interested in this industry.
Yeah, absolutely. So several years ago, I visited San Francisco for the first time, and I fell in love with the city, and I told myself that I just had to come back, not to just visit, but to live and work there. And at the same time, I got accepted to a public relations program and knew they were offering internships. So I used that as an opportunity to return to San Francisco. But again, I was in public relations, so I was initially set up to work with a global public relations agency. But for whatever reason, that fell through, and I ended up finding an internship on my own through Craigslist. And of course, it ended up being a tech startup. So it was based in Mountain View. I did the whole 4-hour commute over there where at the startup, it was a social network that focused on user privacy. At the time, people weren't aware of the issues with user privacy as they do today regarding Facebook. So I worked on everything from public relations, marketing to development, and then when the internship was done, I came back to Canada, worked for them as a consultant, and I continued to do that work one-on-one with the founders, and then because it's part-time consulting and working for a nonprofit where I was both their communications lead and their tech support, and did that for a while, and then eventually this tech star wanted me full-time. I went back to go live in San Francisco and work for them full-time, and then since then I decided that I wanted to expand my skill set and focus on writing. So I decided to go out and do a postgraduate journalism program in Vancouver, and I realized how that could complement me tackling complex tech topics like user privacy. And so I worked for a software company that focused on information management. And similar to previous experience, I helped them to publicize, market, and develop their products. So working with the sales and marketing team, the development teams, And then I realized that I was onto something here using my journalism skills where I can distill all these complex topics and help both the sales, marketing, development teams and understand what their user needs are. So then
you're like a bridge basically
yes,
between the departments.
And then Zoku Media was born, and here I am now.
And what attracted you to technology in general? Have you always been sort of drawn to technology?
It's funny because actually at a young age, I spent a lot of time both writing stories and building websites.
Interesting.
Yeah, my siblings, they were part of this social network at the time where a profile is more like a website. They can customize HTML. So they allowed me to use it, and I slowly learned how, but then high school and following, I kind of forgot about it, did it here and there when I needed to for work. But yeah, I just loved that. On the HTML side, things was just like a code, and I loved that challenge when it comes to coding, and I loved that. I mean, technology is always changing, and it's not just industry itself, it's part of every industry, so I love catching up with latest technologies and how it's changing how we live and work every day. It
sounds like technology was a part of your life from a young age and that you were really encouraged along the way. What about you, Amy? How did your interest in the tech sector evolve?
Well, it started at a young age for me, and I blame my parents. My mother was in sciences and my father was an engineer, and he started taking me to women in science and engineering sort of talks from a very early age, and opened up sort of my eyes to what was possible and the fact that it's possible to be a girl and girls are encouraged to do engineering and to get into math and to do all of that. So I was very lucky to have a father who was so supportive that way. And then from then on, part of it is personal. I just like a challenge. And I'm not one of those people for which, you know, the engineering part came really easily. There are women like that and men like that, and that's wonderful. For me, it was a challenge, and I decided to start with the hardest thing for me that there was, and I just went after that, and I made it through. And since then, every career opportunity I've had has gone back to and related to my technology background for that. And I would say that I had a lot of lucky breaks, but I met a lot of people who really enabled and supported me along the way.
Who were some of those people that gave you those breaks? And can you trace it back to maybe one break that kind of started everything for you?
Oh, that's a great question. Because I do spend a lot of time trying to figure out how I got to where I am. I guess that, well, aside from my father, I'll stop talking about my parents now. I would say I had a few early mentors in university who sort of connected me with my first sort of big tech job in venture capital. And also another mentor I had even earlier to that who decided to sort of take me under his wing and started me off on that path.
Were most of your mentors male?
Probably most of them,
yeah.
But I've had some really good female inspiration as well. So a good balance, I think.
What about you, Lisa? Who's mentored you?
I would say similar to Amy, first off was my family. They were always very supportive in terms of anything I wanted to do. Like I never thought to myself that I couldn't go into this area, tech, because again, I mean, they introduced it to me at such an early age. And then as I grew older, they were just very supportive of everything that I did. And whenever a challenge came up, always ready to offer advice. And then from then on, I would say that the people I worked with as I was consulting, once they realized what I was capable of, I did have people sit me down and ask me, like, where do you see yourself from here? Because I want to, like, help empower you to do more. So I've been lucky that I've had a few people in my life that have offered that to me.
Amy, how do you think you should go about finding a mentor? How do you begin that process? How do you approach someone? How do you identify someone who's capable of taking your career to the next level? And how do you avoid scaring them off?
Well, people who make good mentors are generally very busy people.
Yeah.
So that can be a challenge, absolutely. I've also had some people approach me about being a mentor. And so from that perspective, I would say that offering to help is good. Sort of suggesting, talking about yourself and then offering to help, asking for, so talk about yourself a little bit, ask for some advice, and then offer to help with something, just to get involved. And I think that mentors would be very open to that, and that's how I've gotten some mentors as well, some of my mentors, just by being engaged in something that they were looking for help on.
So what do you think would be a reasonable request to make of a mentor, or reasonable expectations to have? What do you think, Lisa?
Well, for me, the most recent person that I reached out to for mentorship was somebody that was a family friend. I knew that they had a unique background in journalism and tech as well, and I was a little nervous going back in the tech industry after journalism, so I wanted to ask about how I overcome certain challenges. And at the time, I knew that they were working on a certain business where they needed help with social media. So I asked our mutual acquaintance, and I asked, I would love to help them with this, and if they're open to it, I would also love to get their advice on X, Y, and Z. So I didn't just go out and be like, I need someone to help me with this and that. I thought about it.
You were specific.
Yes,
yeah.
I had bullet points ready for them because, like Amy said, I realized these people are so busy, so I want to make the best use of their time.
Amy, as someone who's approached frequently to be a mentor, what would be the best way to approach you, and what would kind of turn you off from the beginning?
The best way to approach me would be to show me that you've done some research, that you know something about the organization or something about me that makes me a particularly good fit as a mentor, much the same way that you would approach someone who you're looking to hire you. And then what would be a turn off?
I mean, is it possible to ask for too much?
It is.
Yeah. It's happened before. Yeah.
It is possible to ask for too much. I mean, I want to give back, and I think a lot of mentors do, and they just don't always have the time. So ask me for something that I can give. So ask if you could have coffee. Start small. Yeah. Ask if you could have coffee, and then build up from there, and then ask if you could tag along for things or to be kept in mind for any opportunities going forward. Feel me out first, I would say would be good advice.
And is it important to have female mentors and mentees?
I think that it's more about the individual.
Yeah.
Actually, than it is about whether or not they're male or female. I think it's nice if you can have a balance of both. But it really depends on who they are and what their experience is.
I want to hear both your thoughts on how a woman can succeed in the tech industry. We're just about to go to break, but don't go away. We'll be right back.
The following program is brought to you by Rogers Anyplace TV. Enjoy exclusive content for free. Visit RogersAnyplaceTV.com.
A, B, C, always be lifting. Ready, set, go.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Anderson.
And I'm Allison Schaefer.
And we are the hosts of The Parenting Show.
How great that Rogers has a TV show where we can address all the common parenting issues.
It's all the issues that you face and to let you know that you are not alone.
And I can offer you some great expert advice. Things like picky eating, how to get your kids to sleep, dealing with those blowouts at homework time.
All those things and more right here on Rogers TV.
I'm Paula Roy, and I'd like to invite you to join me in my kitchen each week as I share with you my favorite recipes, hints, and tips.
Play 4 games of bingo from the comfort of your own home each Monday at 7 p.m. for your chance to win money from our $2,000 regular bingo or $5,000 super bingo night. Kiwanis TV Bingo, Mondays at 7 p.m. on Rogers TV.
Welcome back to Ottawa Experts. I'm your host, Barbara Balfour. We're in the studio tonight with special guests Amy Yee and Lisa Tan, talking about how women can navigate the often male-dominated worlds of STEM and the trades. Lisa, before we went to break, we were chatting a little bit about how you don't need to be a techie to find a career in tech. In other words, you don't have to be a coder. There's so many other career paths and opportunities available to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So there actually is a Harvard study out there that talks about that most 40% of tech jobs come without a bachelor's degree. And in addition, I personally have been able to advance to where I am now because I've been leveraging my journalism skills, which makes sense because when you think about that, as you grow and you're in a position to lead, you need to be able to communicate to all these different teams and understand what their needs are to grow your product or service. So that's something that I really want to get across to all women out there, whether they're considering a career in tech or they're already in there, that you can advance and you don't have to stay up all night learning about all the latest different technologies, because that's constantly growing, but also focus on other skills such as journalism, communications, and so forth.
It sounds like in an industry that tends to focus on hard skills and tech skills, that softer skills would come at a premium.
Yeah, and I will add that recently I went to Microsoft Tech Summit where they had some great speakers from their team from around the world. And that was the one thing that they highlighted in their keynote speech, was that as tech companies, all the departments need to speak with each other. Communication is becoming more and more important.
That's good to hear that they're actually putting a premium on that. And you actually brought in a book. It's a book that is very near and dear to your heart. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so this book is called How Women Rise. All of my close friends will know that I tend to read a lot of these type of books, and I particularly like this one because I found that even where I am now, that there's a lot of things I didn't realize that I was doing that was holding me back.
For example?
For example, one of the things that they list as one of the habits that women tend to do that is holding them back is that being reluctant to claim the credit for the work that they have done, the studies say that a lot of women they interviewed felt like, that was self-serving, they didn't want to come off that way to others, and reassuring them that it's not, it's really just signaling to people around you that you're ready to advance where you are. And the second one that I felt like I could really relate to was that not letting it be known that you want to advance, because I remember there was a period where I felt really unhappy at work and I wanted things to change, but I was too afraid to say anything, and so...
What were you scared would happen?
I guess I was scared that I didn't deserve at the time. It was a time when I wasn't as confident in my capabilities, and this is one of the people I worked with who ended up becoming a mentor to me. They noticed, and I guess were concerned that I may leave, and so they had a conversation with me and figure out what I wanted to change for me to be more satisfied. And they said to me, Lisa, if you never ask, the answer is always no.
Those are very powerful words.
Yes,
yeah. And
so that second point in the list about, let it be know that you want to advance, I mean, it just makes sense, right? Because then inadvertently you're giving away a position that you want to someone else, or the decision makers don't know that it's something that you want. So that's also something that I really want to highlight to others.
Great points. We actually have a caller on the line. Robin, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Hi, Robin. Thanks so much for watching tonight. Did you have a question for our guests?
Thank you. Yes, I do. I have a question in regards to women and our competitive nature. Now, I was just curious what you would think would be that we could reasonably expect from a female mentor because we're so competitive as women. What would be your answer to that? And also, why would you choose a female mentor over a male? If you had any wisdom to share on that.
Great questions, because I think often women may not be as supportive of each other as they can be because there's still the idea that there's only room for one of us at the table. What do you think about that, Amy?
About whether or not there's room for more than one.
Well, about Robin's questions.
Going to why you would look for a female mentor, for instance. Female mentors do have a lot to offer. They have a different perspective. What I've learned from some of the female mentors I have is just in terms of how to be a role model actually for other women in the workplace, which is great. So, for example, showing that it's okay, for instance, to take a meeting remotely from home. Maybe there's some reason for it, and making it okay. Because as women, we might feel like to be competitive, we always have to be in person, for example. So being an example for other women in the workplace, whether it's taking a step back or showing weakness, exactly, that it's okay. I think that's some really good advice that I've had. So that's a perspective that I wouldn't have gotten from a male mentor.
Good point. And what do you think, Lisa, about the point that Robin made about the competitive nature of women? Have you experienced that yourself?
I have, actually. Yeah, I feel like I recently watched this documentary called Misrepresentation, and it talks about how the media always, has a tendency to show women as always fighting against each other, whether it's for, a role or men and so forth. And that does feed into the tech industry as well, because there's so few of us, and so I feel like there are some of that feel like there isn't room for all of us to grow, and maybe subconsciously do certain things where they're doing the opposite of supporting each other. But yeah, I would like to say that there is, the numbers are staying low. There is room for us to grow, and we're only stronger when we support each other.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Robin, and for asking your questions.
Great questions.
How can you be a strong role model for, encouraging women in STEM?
I think that one of the issues is that there just aren't enough women out there sort of being, up front and out front and talking about what they do and sort of showing themselves as role models. I think that even if you were, viewed and people know of you as a role model, that's a step forward, because there just aren't enough.
Even just the presence.
Just the presence, exactly. Just be there, be yourself.
Julie's on the line with us. Julie, did you have a question for our guest tonight?
Hi, Barbara.
Hi.
Yeah, I do. So my question is, how would I go about getting into the field of the technology if I have no prior experience or education in that field?
That sounds like a question for Lisa.
Yeah, okay. So first thing is do the legwork to find the opportunities. Look on LinkedIn, Facebook events, Eventbrite, or in Ottawa, the Founder Institute organization, Startup Grind, and Invest Ottawa always have networking events, particularly for people who are either have no experience or are experienced, and it's meant to be that way so that we can grow our tech community here. And then from then on, one thing that I find very helpful to other people I spoke to is going on LinkedIn and using their career advice feature, where you can select someone who works in the tech industry and be very specific about things you want to know, like how do I break in with this is my experience, what is your advice for me?
So these people have already signed up and they've already acknowledged that they want to be asked questions, so they're willing to give advice.
Yes, that's also a great start.
Yeah, wonderful. Does that answer your question, Julie?
Yeah, it does. Perfect.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a great evening.
I do want to share, if I can.
Yes.
I think that, sometimes being a woman and sort of standing out actually invites other women to come and talk to you at tech events, and I don't think it's always necessarily the case that women are competitive with each other and sort of shut each other out. I think that there are times when women will sort of sit up and take notice of another woman who is in the crowd who's saying something that's important.
Well, you actually sent us a photo of yourself giving a presentation. Was it in Japan? Maybe we can pull that up
Sure.
on the screen. And I think you were the only woman in
I was
attendance
the only
there. And Japan is an interesting culture. I
is.
lived and worked there for some time myself. As a foreign woman, I guess you're seen as almost like a third sex, but they still have a long ways to go when it comes to equality in certain spaces.
They do. It was that was the first time I've ever spoken to a crowd of all male attendees. I think I was an alien in a lot of ways because I was foreign, because I'm a female executive, and because I'm speaking from a technology perspective. That was really special. And then to keynote that conference as well was really different. And I think that they were mostly they were listening, but I don't think they knew what to make of me, really. I will also say that the women that I did meet there were extremely welcoming and very interested in sort of promoting women in technology and making change happen. So that was fascinating.
Very encouraging to hear. We also have another caller on the line. Debbie, are you there?
Yes, hi.
Hi, thank you so much for watching. Did you have a question?
I did. I'm self-employed. I've had my own business for 20 years, and it tends to be at a feast or famine, and I've kind of specialized in one specific industry, and that's learning and development. And it never kind of occurred to me to try to market myself into different industries like some of the tech companies. Do you think in that kind of situation, a mentor that's familiar with the culture of those kind of organizations, might be helpful to, as like an independent consultant, to try to transfer my skills to that type of industry?
Amy, I see you nodding.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I'm just thinking about my own organization. We always need lots of people in learning and development. I feel like it's even more now than before because technology is changing everywhere. So I focus on digital transformation, and more companies are doing digital transformation, and that means change and then learning and adoption of new behaviors and technologies. And so I feel like learning and development is incredibly important, and it's definitely something that you should look at in terms of getting a mentor from that area.
Well, and I've worked in that area, but my actual work is doing editing, quality control, proofreading, of material and content. Because quite often, you've got learning programs that are coming from a bunch of different people writing it, like instructional designers or different subject matter experts, and it tends to kind of funnel through me so that it all has one voice and is consistent. But I work for a lot of learning and development companies, but I've never really thought of kind of branching off and approaching some of the other, like tech companies specifically, that might need help with proofreading and quality control and making language more accessible and stuff like that.
That makes sense.
Thank you so much for joining us, Debbie. We're about to go to break in a minute. Lisa, I wanted to give you a chance. Any final thoughts, anywhere we can find you in the future? Any last thoughts for our viewers?
Yeah, absolutely. I would just like to say that even though I'm here today, I'm a very shy person, wasn't very sure about, what I really wanted to do in the future. But, and so with that said, I want all the women out there to know that if I can go out there, put myself out there and not just break into, but advance the world of tech, anyone can. And that's the main message that I want to get across. And if any of you guys need help, just don't hesitate, reach out to me, find me on social media.
Thank you so much, Lisa. It's been a real pleasure to have you. Don't forget to like our video and comment if you want to win a consultation with Lisa. We'll be right back after the break with special guest Jen Ross. Don't go away.
The sun goes down in Pasadena and I feel alive. I feel like I'm dreaming, and the sun comes up and I'm still sleeping and alone.
Hello, I'm Liz Dowdsville, Lieutenant Governor of Ontario. In 2008, carbon monoxide, a deadly invisible gas, killed an entire family in our province. That tragedy led to a new law requiring homes with potential CO sources to have alarms. John Gignac's family members passed away that day, and he shares his story to save others.
Please make sure you have working CO alarms in your home. Protect your family today.
In 10, 9, 8,
Lucas Bouchard, at your service.
7, 6, 5.
Nathan Grant.
Are you our new Mountie?
Yes, ma'am.
4, 3, 2, 1. Celebration.
Hi, I'm Julie Dustin, and I'm a volunteer here at Rogers TV. I love working at Rogers TV because I'm learning the elements of television production and working with professional production crews. I've had fun on every single volunteer shift I've done because I've been challenged and I've learned something, and I've also enjoyed whatever the content of the show is that I'm working on.
Welcome back to Ottawa Experts. I'm your host, Barbara Balfour. I am so pleased to introduce to you our third guest this evening, Jen Ross. Jen is a proud wife, mother, tradeswoman, and business owner. She is the founder of Sage Grove Contracting, a company specializing in interior and exterior residential renovations that she began in 2015. As a queer woman in the trades, Jen feels it's incredibly important to create safe spaces for her clients, to support other individuals from underrepresented groups in the field, and to empower women to work with their hands. Welcome to the show, Jen.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us. Are you actually giving something away to our guests this evening?
Yes, I am. Queer in 613 is having an event called We Mean Business. It's a queer cocktail for women in business. So we'll be giving away 2 tickets to that event.
Awesome. And you don't have to be queer
You definitely do not have to be queer.
Okay.
No.
Okay, great. So if you want a chance at winning those tickets, the same as with a consultation with Lisa, you just need to like our video and comment on which prize you'd be interested in. We'll do a draw at the end of the week, and we'll put you in touch with our guests if you are the lucky winner. So Jen, have you always been handy around the house? How did you get to where you are today?
Yeah, I think that I've really grew up enjoying working with my hands. In terms of getting where I am today, I think that I was quite lucky growing up. I had a lot of role models that really were kind of ahead of their time and not putting gender roles and gender norms in my face. I had my grandparents grew up in the country, and it was definitely not unfamiliar for my pops to have 15 to 20 bikes in his yard, and I would go over on a Saturday and he would hand me a wrench and hand me some WD-40 and tell me to take them apart and make a new bike out of all of the bike parts. So
wow.
Yeah, which was something that I don't even know at the time if it was, new and out of sorts. But
did you enjoy doing that, or were you kind of resentful?
No, I absolutely loved doing it. It was something that I had a passion for, right?
Yeah.
So it was nice that I grew up watching, and my nanny also, I watched her take on tasks that would otherwise be seen as like a man's job.
It's interesting. So there was no division of labor according to gender whatsoever?
Not that I remember growing up. I was encouraged to do what I like to do. So that was definitely something that I didn't experience growing up. And I think that really allowed me to experiment doing more things with my hands.
I want to hear more about the growth of your business, but first we have a caller on the line. Are you with us?
Yes, hi.
Hi, how are you this evening?
I'm good, thanks.
Thank you so much for joining us. Did you have a question for our guests?
Yes. My question is, do your guests have any advice on how to deal with a female boss who isn't exactly supportive of promoting me?
Amy, do you have any ideas on that?
A female boss who isn't very supportive. I guess it really depends on the individual, situation. It's always good to ask, why, and to try to understand sort of the reasons behind it. And then, if you have a mentor, it would be great to ask your mentor why, what the issue, might be.
Do we sometimes fall into the trap of assuming that just because we're around someone that is like us or that we can identify with, that they'll automatically be on our side? Is that an assumption we should refrain from making? Because I found in my experience that some of our biggest advocates could not be more different than me.
I absolutely think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. And at the same time, you shouldn't assume that, because she's a woman that has, that is the main sort of issue around it as well. So I wish the caller luck, but it's always determining sort of the reason why, just best practice.
Thank you so much for calling in.
Thank you.
So Jen, I want to hear more about your business and how did you get to the point where you started this business? Did you identify a need that wasn't being met? How did it all come about?
Yeah, so I initially started working. When I was working for a smaller renovation company, and I definitely quickly started noticing that my boss was getting a lot of jobs because of me, and the clients were coming back saying like, "I'll hire you so long as you're sending Jen." So once I kind of realized that that was happening, and I really felt comfortable in branching off and making my own company, so that I knew that I would have the work, and I knew that I already had a bit of a following in terms of a client base, I really kind of just did it. And it was definitely scary. It was definitely going out, and I have zero formal training in terms of running a business, running a company. I did not go to school for it.
What about in trades? Did you go to school for
No,
trades?
I didn't. I grew up doing it.
So you're self-taught?
It's all self-taught.
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely had reservations. I had the obvious reservations that are, I am a woman, I am a queer-looking woman and identifying woman, so I wasn't sure how that would impact my ability to get jobs. But yeah, I just...
Were you the only women that you knew working in trades? Were there other women as well?
Definitely not the only woman I know working in trades, mostly probably because the other women that I do know working in the trades, we kind of all know each other.
Yeah.
It definitely is a small group of people within Ottawa.
Is it uncomfortable being part of such a small group?
No, it's unfortunate because I think there's a huge need for women in the trades. I can't tell you the amount of times that I will finish a contract with a client and 90% of the time at the end of it, I'm told what a great experience it was being able to work with a woman instead of a man. And it's just a different dynamic. It's not that men can't do the job, and it's not that men are, doing something that they don't enjoy. It's just that the feedback that I keep getting is that it's just different, that I'm willing to explain more, that I'm willing to sit down and have a conversation with them and really try to teach them something about it. So it's completely different than just going and doing the job and leaving.
You're not, and that's what they say about female business owners too, is that for them it's not just about the bottom line, it's also about wanting to feel like they left the world a slightly better place or had done something to help their clients as well. I had a terrible experience actually recently with a plumber who was called to my apartment, and we had a disagreement about something, and at one point I just felt very unsafe in my apartment and just didn't want to continue the conversation anymore. And so how great it would be to have a woman in his place. It just feels safer somehow. I imagine you've gotten similar feedback from your clients.
Yes, yeah, all the time. I mean, because at the end of the day, right, you're going into someone's home. Often you're giving them a key to your house and they're doing the work while you're gone and you're at work, and there is more of a sense of safety, right? And it just is what it is. And people often ask me like, well, why? Why is it so much different that because you're a woman? And there's familiarity, there's a common understanding. It's the same thing works with being queer. When I go in and I work for a queer client, there's already that community, right? Why it's different and why it's so much easier, it's just that there's an understanding between the two of you, right? It's already there, it's already in place, so it allows you to kind of like jump over all of those early stages of forming a bond and forming a relationship with your client.
Mm. Amy, do you feel that being a woman has been an advantage for you in STEM?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no. I have faced discrimination before, especially in industries like venture capital, where it is extremely, male sort of ego dominated.
So what does that discrimination look like?
Sort of an expectation that I might not know much about technology, or that I might not know much about business even at times. So it was good to have the degree to fall back on, but it built me up, and it was a great learning experience for everything that I had to do. And I spent a lot of time in male-dominated industries, like on boards of directors, in technology fields, but it has always come back to me that it's always better to have a balanced and diverse team. And I think that's even more important now than ever before. And it's just making yourself understood and giving yourself permission to speak and to be wrong, and to know that it's okay to do that.
Mm. Jen, have you ever faced homophobia in your line of work?
subtle homophobia. I think that the clients that are going to hire me aren't obviously overtly homophobic. I read as an out lesbian. It's pretty obvious. But subtle, yes, definitely. I've definitely had instances where I've been hired, and I remember one in particular where I had a client, and the whole time she was kind of trying to like read me, is what they call it, and I had mentioned that I grew up in the country and all this stuff, and she was like, oh, now it makes sense. Like, you're a country girl. Like, that's why you dress the way you do. That's why you look the way you look like you do, right?
Which really shouldn't be an issue when you're just there to help with
No,
your basement
it shouldn't be an issue
or
at
whatever.
all, right? Yeah, I mean, it shouldn't play into as a factor at all, but it does. Yeah.
But no one's ever, for example, not hired you.
I wouldn't know. Yeah. I guess that at the end of the day, right? I mean, it would be very easy. I've never had overtly someone tell me, no, I'm not going to hire you because you're queer. But I mean, they can just refuse a contract. So
And you wouldn't know.
I wouldn't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have a caller on the line. John, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Hi, John. Thanks so much for watching. Did you have a question for our guest tonight?
Yes. As a father, what skills would be best for me to focus on teaching my daughter so when she does get into the workforce, she would be an effective member of that team?
What do you think, Jen?
I think it's incredibly important to just empower your daughter to do what she loves to do. I think allowing her to explore whatever avenue she chooses to take is really going to empower her. It's going to make her feel confident. And I think at the end of the day, really confidence is key in terms of becoming successful. So if you're able to just support her in what she's naturally inclined to go towards, I think that will have a huge impact on her skills.
What do you think, Amy?
I would agree with Jen. I think it's about encouraging them to follow their passion and to build confidence, and that nothing is too hard, for you to do, or nothing is something that's impossible for you to learn. It's all possible for you.
I'm reminded of that Barbie doll many years ago. It was a big controversy because she was automatically programmed to say math is hard or math is tough. Do you remember that? It was a while ago. Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy.
Really? That was a thing?
Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Okay.
John, does that answer your question, or did you have any follow-up for our guest?
No, this was fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. We have a minute before we go to break, but when we come back, I want to talk about the fact that you're both moms to young daughters, and I want to hear about how you plan to raise them, and maybe normalize STEM or trades, or even sort of being handy around the house the same way you would any other kind of task or any other kind of pursuit. And it sounds like you both have had a lot of positive role modeling and parental and grandparental support as well in your lives. It sounds like it's really played a role in the career path that you've both chosen.
It has.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So we have a couple seconds before we go back to break. But when we come back, I want to talk a little bit more about some of the particulars of the trades and how to pursue your career in STEM once you're already in it. We'll be right back after the break. Don't go away.
The world's most famous Canadian, Grey Owl, just back from a triumphant British tour, is to be a reluctant guest at a gathering of First Nations.
Archie, you may not realize this, but right now you are the most famous Red Indian in the world. These are your people. You have to be there. Come on, Harry, let's go.
Sure, I'm sure. His name is Archie Bellini, and if he's a Red Indian, I'm the King of China.
It is an honor to meet the man called Grey Owl, who has brought much respect for our people.
Imposter, rascal, dreamer, and yet the Englishman who called himself Grey Owl awoke the whole world to our vanishing wilderness.
My brother says, men become what they dream. You have dreamed well.
It was my daughter's birthday. She was blowing out the candles on her cake when we heard coming from the TV. So we stopped and listened, and it helped us get to safety. That's why when I think of my daughter's birthday. because now she gets to keep having them.
Uninterrupted speeches from Canada's business leaders, visionaries, and social figures. Watch Podium Tuesdays at 9:30 p.m. on Rogers TV.
Are you the type who would keep going or stop? It's not easy to stop when you have an addiction. Legalizing cannabis won't stop addiction. It trivializes its consumption. Let's be vigilant. If you need help, visit portage.ca.
Welcome back to Ottawa Experts. I'm your host, Barbara Balfour. We're in the studio tonight with special guests Amy Yee and Jen Ross, talking about how to navigate a man's world when you're a woman in the fields of STEM and the trades. Now, before we went to break, we talked a little bit about how you're both moms to young daughters, and I'd love to hear about your plans for how you plan to raise them and sort of teach some of the skills that you've learned along the way. Now, Jen, your child is quite young, right?
Yeah, she just turned a year on February 8th, yeah.
Yeah, so what are your hopes for her as a daughter? What are your plans?
I hope she becomes the best person she can ever be. My plan, and mine and my wife's plan, is to absolutely just let her be herself. We're trying, as parents, we're trying to actively encourage her to a variety of different skills already. I mean, she is only a year old, and I mean, for her birthday, one of our friends bought her like one of those little like workshop stations, and
fantastic.
We're definitely not raising her gendered.
So it's not all pink and
no,
dolls.
No, it's definitely not all pink. It's not all let's just play with dolls. It's very much like you can do it, and I really yeah, you can do it. You can do all these different skills that are geared towards boys and not girls.
Because I think when you go to the toy store, is it still sort of...
Still incredibly gendered, and it's unfortunate. And I think that I know that we're going to raise her in a way that it's like we're not going to just constantly compliment her features and her looks. I mean, we're very active in terms of telling her how strong she is and how brave she is, right? She doesn't understand it yet because she's a year old, but I think just using the right language and opening up doors that otherwise wouldn't have maybe been opened because of stereotypical norms,
that
right?
Start so young that we're not even consciously aware of that.
Exactly, yeah.
Now, Amy, you have a daughter as well.
I do. She's 5. I have a son who's 8 and my daughter who's 5. And I have to admit that I put my daughter in pink. I feel like a bad mom now. But I have to admit that I have to consciously, and actively work against my own biases, having, just grown up in this world. The other day, my daughter was mixing some instant oatmeal, and she was happy and proud. It was a job that I'd given her to do. And she said, "Mom, I'm great at mixing." And so I said, "Oh, well, that's terrific. Maybe one day, you could be a great baker or a cook or a scientist."
Or an astronaut.
Exactly, because they have to mix stuff too. And then I made that sound great. And then she said, "That sounds hard." And I said, "No, it's not hard. You can absolutely do this." And so it's something conscious that I have to make sure that I do. And I do want to do that for her. And I want to open doors and make sure that she has an ability to experience everything and be interested in everything. I'll tell one more story. And it's just, if you're a parent, you can relate to this if you have 2 children. They were sitting, this was a few years ago, and my daughter was 2 and my son was probably about 5. And they were both sitting in the washroom together. My daughter was on a potty and my son was on the toilet. And he was asking her, like some sort of guidance counselor, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And she's like,
important bathroom
"I know,
conversations."
exactly, right? And she said, "Well, I don't know." And he's like, "Do you want to be an astronaut or a cowboy or a puppeteer?" I'm like listening at the door, right? Trying not to laugh my head off. And she said, "I don't know. I just want to be me." And I just thought that was such a great answer. And I do really want her to be her and pursue her passions. But I think that it is my job to make sure that she's exposed to everything. And she sees, what I do. And she sees that I travel a lot for work and that I'm talking to people and that I understand technology and work with computers. And she's absorbing some of that, I think.
It sounds like you're continuing the role modeling that that you got from your parents as well, which is wonderful.
Trying.
Jen, I want to talk about the mentorship service that you offer to women as part of your business. Now, you sent us a number of photos, some befores and afters of the work that you do. Maybe we can pull those up on the screen right now, and even some photos of you side by side with your clients, showing them how to do things. That's amazing. So how does it work?
So it's basically what it sounds like. In starting my business, I worked obviously alongside clients, and I often heard like, yeah, you know, I'm handy, but I'm worried about taking X project on because I don't want to spend...
We just had a before and after of a bathroom show up on the screen. I just wanted to let our viewers know. I mean, that's an amazing transformation. It looks incredible.
And that actual bathroom, that was done side by side with a client that through a mentorship program, and it was incredible. I mean, and this particular client, we started off, she hired me and she wanted to start with a backsplash. And I get a lot of kitchen backsplashes. That's where people often want to start. And, you know, we did the backsplash, and by the end of the project, it was really the look on her face of just like pure empowerment. She felt like she could take on more tasks.
Yeah, I have to ask, was there some terror at the beginning?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely like, there's those general, they're very, common fears of, you know, I'm worried about using the saw. I'm worried about worry, right? Of just like, I don't want to mess it up. But I would say within an hour, it was like, went from, okay, well, how do I put the tile on? How do I apply the glue? Is that too much glue? Is that too little glue? And I'm kind of like, just do it. Like, just get it on. Don't worry, I'll make sure that everything looks good. And an hour into it, I mean, she was asking me if she could use the wet saw. She's like, I think I could do that. Like, do you think I could try doing that? I'm like, yeah, of course.
How does that make you feel as you observe this transformation?
It's amazing, because at the end of it, she's looking around her house, going around with like a pencil, being like, and I can do this, and I can do that. And it definitely feels good to watch women, I mean, women and men, I've done it with men as well, but it's like to watch people do something they otherwise thought they couldn't do and really realize that they have much more control to do things and take on challenges they otherwise would have thought they couldn't. It's a really nice thing to see.
I want to pull up some pictures of the backyard that you worked on as well. There was a before and after. So this looks like it was a before or an after pic, this one here with the rock garden.
That one is a before. Yeah, so yeah, the entire backyard was just filled with a whole bunch of river rock.
Oh, and is that you there or is that your client?
That is me.
Okay.
Yeah, that is me. Yeah. So we actually made that entire backyard completely maintenance free. So
wow.
Yeah, which is kind of incredible, right? So now the clients in spring can basically turn on their outdoor lights and everything's ready to go. There's no,
And so how does the logistics of the mentorship work in terms of, you know, is there a formal signing up process? Do they get a discount if they're doing some of the work next to you?
Definitely, yes. So the way that it really works is that if you're interested in doing it, contact me, tell me what you're thinking of doing. If I've never worked with you, it'd probably be something a little bit smaller, just so that we make sure that it works well together. But it basically goes from being a contract that's, you know, a set price to an hourly rate. And if you take it on and you say, I think I want to do this backsplash, and you are an hour into it and you're like, oh, you know what, I don't like this at all, I finish it. It's not a big deal. There's zero commitment, right? And if you get really good at it and you're actually get really quick at it, absolutely you're saving yourself money, because the job gets done faster than...
Here's a picture of a kitchen that you worked on as well.
Yeah, that one was also a mentor. I did that backsplash with a client as well.
Now, there's some really great resources in town that you let clients know about. What are some of those resources that every woman should know?
Yeah, there's definitely there's the Ottawa Tool Library, so you can go and you can access that, and you can borrow tools for free. So you don't need to go and purchase a $400 saw that you're going to use once and you're not sure that you can handle or want to continue using.
So you can borrow a $400 saw for free?
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to get because they're always lent out. Yeah. So if anyone has some extra tools, I'm sure that the Ottawa Tool Library would love to acquire them. But yeah, no, there are services like that you can access. I mean, you can watch. There's a bunch of videos online that you can look at. You can start small and learn and just start. Yeah.
Is that how you learned?
I mean, I did a lot. I worked alongside, my dad also did renovations, so I worked alongside him for quite a while. That's where I learned the foundation of it, and then really from there, was a lot of trial and error, right? So I would just do it, and sometimes I failed, and if I failed, well, it cost me more money, and I didn't make as much money on that job, and I would have to redo it until it was done, until the job was done, right? So there was a lot of failing along the line, but now it's at a point where everything's smooth and running, which is great, right? So.
And in your household, did your mom and your grandma also take part in some of those renovations work?
Not really. I didn't. My mom's a gardener, but
that counts.
Yeah, it does count, right? So, yeah, I wouldn't say that I saw that on a day-to-day basis. I think I really just. It's just kind of natural to me. I really just do enjoy working with my hands, and I really enjoy, like I go back to the bike things, right? It's just a natural passion for me to be able to build something or fix something, right? So.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, you have some appearances coming up.
I do. So March 30th, I will be at We Mean Business, which is a queer cocktail for women in business.
You're actually hosting that.
I am hosting that, yes. And I will be at Queer Sphere on June 8th and 9th.
And what's that?
That is going to be quite a large event. It's going to be basically a bunch of businesses. It will be at the Shaw Centre. And it's either people that do identify as part of the community or businesses that support our community. So it's definitely geared towards everyone, but it will be a space where people can go and know that they're buying a product or buying a service from people that support them and aren't going to discriminate on them.
What does it mean for you to be not just a woman in the trades, which is traditionally male dominated, but also a queer woman? Like, how does that add another layer to that?
It allows me to serve my community, which is hugely important to me. We are obviously moving in great strides as a society, but there is definitely still discrimination. So it allows me to be a safe space for clients. And that's why I try to continuously tell people, I mean, I'm constantly telling women, get into the trades, do it. There's such a demand, there's such a need. And really, I only speak for women and for queer people. That's the only minority group that I'm servicing, right? There are other minority groups that are still not being represented in the trades, and we need them. People want to feel a connection to the person that's in their home doing this work, right? So there's definitely still a very much
disconnect?
Yeah.
We have a couple minutes before we go to break. Amy, do you have any final thoughts for our viewers?
I think in terms of the role of men, I was thinking about that caller from earlier, the dad, looking for advice for his daughter. I thought that was so wonderful. Yeah. I think that in terms of, how can men in society be more supportive, I think, nobody thinks that they're perpetuating a bias or treating someone unfairly necessarily, right? They think that everybody thinks that they're being good. And I think that, you need to be part of the conversation, and everyone should be part of that conversation and be included in that conversation. And I think that taking a step, and this can go for some women as well, to create a safe space for a woman to participate or to be part of the conversation, and taking an active step in doing that would be great.
That's wonderful. Any final thoughts for our viewers?
Yeah, I would love it for all women to find their confidence. I think that's a huge thing that people need to take away, and I think that if we can just feel confident and we can walk this world and take up this space that we are entitled to, I think that we can go far. And
that's what it all boils down to, confidence, right? Thank you so much, ladies, for joining us. Wonderful to hear your thoughts. Don't go away. We'll see you in the studio next week.